first thing you have to understand. It's Lancaster, California, 1992. It is an oppressive, dry desert heat. It's the kind of heat that distorts the air above the asphalt. And we are looking down into a drainage ditch.
Yeah, you really have to picture this. It's the kind of place you go when you don't want to be found. It's marginal space.
Totally.
Literally the gutter of the suburbs. It's where the refuse collects both the friendly trash and, I guess, the social outcasts.
And huddled in the dirt are three teenagers, Luke, Bob, and Eli. To any passerby, this looks like, well, standard delinquency. They are skipping class. They are passing around a can of computer duster.
Tetrafluorothane.
Right, that. And they are huffing.
It's a grim scene on the surface. I mean, clinically what they're doing is inducing hypoxia. But if we look at the accounts left behind, specifically Luke's later writings and the oral history of the band, what's happening in that ditch isn't just intoxication.
No.
It's a ritual. It is a phenomenological crisis.
So Luke takes a hit. And the way he describes it, the world doesn't just get blurry or something, it fragments. He talks about this pulsing, cartoony world. But then, amidst all that chaos, he finds an order, a system. He calls it the game of talks.
This is the critical moment. This right here is where the anecdote, this kind of sad story, becomes philosophy.
He sees a ball, like the bouncing ball in those old sing-along videos, that hops over the lyrics to tell you when to sing.
Mm.
But this ball isn't following a song. It is hopping over reality itself.
Mm.
Luke claims he can see the ball bounce before it lands. He says, and this is the quote, "I always get it. We all always get it." He believes he's predicting the exact millisecond the future becomes the present.
Predicting might even be too soft a word. It's more than that. He feels he is synchronizing with time.
Synchronizing?
Yeah, he's anticipating the now. He's experiencing the now before it happens, or as it happens in a way that collapses the difference.
And that's the hook for this whole deep dive. Because on the surface, this is a hallucination, it's a kid on inhalants. But we have a stack of sources here. Writings, tapes, the entire archive of the band that would emerge from this ditch, the 5 Starcle Men. And when you overlay these sources with the work of Jacques Derrida, specifically of grammatology, that bouncing ball becomes something else entirely.
It becomes maybe the most dangerous, or at least the most sought-after idea in Western philosophy.
So today, we are going to argue that Luke wasn't just high. Or at least that being high wasn't the point. We were going to argue that he was confronting the transcendental signified.
Which is a heavy term to drop this early in the morning.
It is. It absolutely is. But look, if you're listening to this, you likely know the 5 Starcle Men. You probably own a dubbed cassette of theirs. You know the Bristle Discal track list by heart. You know the lore. We aren't here to recount the history of outsider music.
No, the assumption is you've done the homework. You know who Derrida is. You know what logocentrism means. We're not doing a 101 course here.
Exactly. The core argument today is that 5 Starcle Men is not just weird music. It is a text that performs its own deconstruction. It is a rigorous, if chaotic, exercise in what Derrida calls sous-reture, or writing under erasure.
So we're going to examine the whole FSM oeuvre through these lenses. We'll look at broccolage, the pharmacon, the trace, and the supplement.
Okay, so let's go back to that bouncing ball, the game of talks. Why do you call that a confrontation with the transcendental signified? To me, my first instinct is to say it sounds like a kid with a fried brain thinking he has superpowers.
And it does sound like that, sure. Of course it does. But think about what we want from the world, philosophically. We want truth. We want meaning, with a capital M. And usually we feel like that meaning is something that is always just out of reach.
Right, like I can say the word tree, but that's just a word. It's just a sound. It's not the tree itself, the actual thing growing outside.
Exactly. In structuralism, you have the signifier, the sound you make, tree, and the signified, the concept of the tree in your head. But Derrida comes along and points out that there's always a gap, a delay. You never actually get to the thing itself.
There's no pure concept.
No. Meaning is always deferred. It's always one step away. You're always chasing it through a chain of other signifiers.
That's difference.
Difference with an A. It means both to differ and to defer. Meaning is created by difference. Tree isn't free, and it's deferred through time. You never catch it. You're always in the process of understanding. But in the ditch, Luke says, "I always get it."
He catches the ball.
He closes the gap. In that chemical trance, the signifier, which is the anticipation of the bounce, and the bounce itself, they happen at the exact same instant for him. He collapses time. He achieves what Derrida would call presence.
Presence, that's the big one.
It's the holy grail of metaphysics. From Plato to Husserl, Every philosopher has wanted to find that spot, that moment, that idea where meaning is fully present right here, right now, uncorrupted by writing, uncorrupted by language or time. Luke feels he has found it.
And this is the crucial part. He found it by inhaling industrial solvent in a drainage ditch.
And that is the absolute core irony of the whole FSM project. He finds the God perspective, the view from nowhere, the pure now, via a toxic chemical that is actively dissolving his sense of self. It's a paradox. And that paradox births the entire aesthetic of the Five Starcle Men. Because once the drug wears off, what are they left with?
A headache in a drainage ditch, and probably some regret.
They're left with the debris, they're left with the junk. And this brings us right to our first major lens for today, the concept of the bricoleur.
Okay, so this comes from Derrida's critique of the anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss.
It does. Lévi-Strauss, in The Savage Mind, he set up this binary opposition between the engineer and the bricoleur. It was a way to talk about mythic thought versus scientific thought.
Right, okay, let's break that down because it's so key to FSM. The engineer is the pro, the professional.
The engineer is the person who has a concept first, a blueprint. They have an idea in their head, a pure form. They want to build a bridge, so they design the bridge, and then they source the specific materials, the exact steel girders, the precise bolts needed for that bridge.
They have a center, a truth, a plan that guides their construction. If they need a specific screw, they go to the store and buy that exact screw.
Yes. Their work is teleological. It's goal-oriented from the start.
And the bricoleur.
The bricoleur is the tinkerer, the handyman, the person who makes do with what's lying around. They look at the pile of junk in their garage and say, okay, I have a piece of cardboard, some duct tape, and a broken radio. What can I make with this? The bricoleur speaks through existing structures. They don't invent new tools from scratch. They repurpose old ones.
Yeah, you just have to look at the equipment list for the Five Starcle Men. I have it here from the liner notes of one of the cassettes. A Tascam 4-track recorder. Okay, that's pretty standard for home recording in the 90s.
Sure, very common.
But then, pots and pans. A blender. The sources mention mutated house pets. And crucially, cassette tape loops.
That mutated house pest entry is, it's a disturbing one, frankly. It always sticks with me.
I assume, or I have to hope, that it refers to recording the sounds of pets and then manipulating the tape, or maybe treating the pets as actors in their weird audio plays rather than, actual biological mutation.
One hopes. But that very ambiguity is part of it. Everything around them becomes raw material. There are no boundaries. The cat, the blender, the guitar, they're all on the same level. They're all the stuff to be used.
So Luke and Glenn, they aren't engineers. They didn't sit down and say, I hear a beautiful symphony in G major in my soul. Let me go learn the violin to express it.
Not at all. It's the complete opposite. They looked at the cultural and literal trash of 1990s Lancaster, California and said, this is our orchestra. They built the entire Starcle world out of the refuse.
There's a specific interview from Wump magazine, a tiny little zine, that touches on this perfectly. Luke talks about creating what he called the Five Starcle Man costume.
This is a crucial bit of lore. It's so telling.
He says he wore this costume, a literal Starcle Man figure strapped to his back like some kind of profane mascot, to refound the city.
Refoundation, I mean, it's such a grand, almost imperial word. It sounds like Romulus founding Rome. It's this act of immense hubris.
But then you picture the reality of it. You have a teenager, probably looking disheveled, walking down a suburban street in that oppressive desert heat, wearing a homemade costume made of, what can we guess? Cardboard, fabric scraps, plastic bottles.
Almost certainly trash. It has to be. It's pure bricolage.
And he claims this act is refounding the city of Lancaster.
This is where Derrida's critique of the engineer becomes so powerful. Derrida argues that the engineer is actually a myth, a fantasy. We like to think we can create from scratch, from a pure center of truth, with a clean blueprint, but we can't.
We're all bricoleurs.
We are all bricoleurs. We're all stuck using a language that someone else invented, using concepts we didn't create, using tools we didn't make. We're always working with the debris of history.
So the FSM just admit it. They lean into it.
They embrace it as their primary aesthetic.
Yeah.
Luke is trying to establish a new center for the city, a new reality, a Starcle reality. But he knows he can only do it from the margins. He can only do it using the debris. He is trying to escape what Derrida calls the closure of metaphysics.
Closure in the sense of being trapped inside the system. Like you can't get outside of language to critique language.
Exactly. If you use the standard tools, If you play a standard guitar in a standard tuning and write a song in 44 time, you are trapped in the history of Western music. You're trapped in the logos. But if you use a blender, if you use a tape loop of a screaming child that you found, you are breaking the closure. You are creating a rupture in the fabric of the expected.
And the symbol of that rupture is the Starcle itself.
We have to talk about the Starcle, the symbol.
I've been looking at this symbol for years. It's on all the album covers. It's a 5-pointed star, but it's just wrong. The lines are shaky, the points are uneven, there's that weird frowning face in the middle.
The source material, the band's own lore, describes its origin as a messed up attempt to draw a typical star.
That's it. It's a mistake, a failure.
But then they take that failure and they elevate it to a deity. They call it a profane, immanent, transcendent alien structure.
That is just a mouthful of contradictions. Let's pull that apart.
Okay. Profane means earthly, dirty, common. Transcendent means holy, above, beyond. Immanent means existing within.
So it's a dirty, holy god that lives inside the trash.
Yes, and that is the perfect description of the trace. This is one of Derrida's most famous and most difficult concepts. The trace is the mark of the absence of a presence.
Okay, help me with that again. It always slips away.
Think about footprints in the sand. When you see a footprint, you know someone was there. The presence of the person is implied, but they aren't there now. The footprint is the trace of the person. It is defined by what is missing. The foot is gone.
Okay, so the Starcle is a footprint. A footprint of what?
The Starcle is the footprint of a star. A star, in the sense of a celestial, perfect, geometric shape, is the ideal. It's the platonic form of a star. The transcendental, signified. But Luke couldn't draw it. He messed up. He created a deformed, broken version.
And instead of crumpling up the paper and throwing it away, which is what I would have done, he said, "This is it. This is the god."
Exactly. He recognized that the deformity, the failure, was more true than the perfection. The Starcle, that frowning face inside the wonky 5 points, is the perfect embodiment of the trace. It points to the concept of a star, but at the same time it screams, "I am not a star." As Derrida says, it is half not there and half not that.
It's visually uncomfortable to look at. It looks like it's in pain or disappointed.
Because it is caught in difference. It is deferred. It never quite becomes the star. It is frozen in the act of failing to be a star. It's the permanent record of that failure.
And that failure becomes the canon. That's pure deconstruction. you don't throw away the mistake is the text.
And this logic of the mistake, of the gap, of the not quite there, it extends to their very identities.
Yeah.
Which brings us, of course, to the acronym that started it all for them.
I saw them. I'm not them.
I remember the first time I saw that written on a cassette spine in a record store. It felt like a riddle. It was so compellingly strange.
It's a philosophical knot in 5 words.
Most bands want to be the thing, I am a rock god, I am the walrus, the Beatles, whatever.
Right. That is an assertion of self-presence. I am, it's Descartes, I think, therefore I am. It posits a stable, solid subject right at the center of the universe.
But I saw them, I'm not them, does the opposite. It pushes the subject away, it hollows out the center. It defines the I purely by negation. Let's break it down. I saw them. So the subject is just an observer, a witness, not an actor, and then I'm not them. The subject explicitly denies being the alien, the object of their observation.
So, who are the 5 Starcle men? Are they Luke and Glenn? Or are they the aliens they saw? The them?
They are neither, and that's the disturbing and brilliant part. The 5 Starcle men is a name for the gap between them.
The gap? How can a band be a gap?
The band exists in the distance between the witness, Luke, and the event, them. If Luke became them, the band wouldn't exist. He'd just be an alien. The project would be over. If he stayed just Luke, the band wouldn't exist. He'd just be a guy in Lancaster. The entire project, called 5 Starcle Men, is the tension. It is the deferral of the arrival of the aliens.
That reminds me of the track Spaceman and Human. The lyrics are so deceptively simple, almost like a child's song. If I was a spaceman, I'd fly. If I was a human, I'd die.
But then comes the punchline, the realization. If I realized I was a spaceman, I would be dead.
Wait, walk me through that again. If I realized I was a spaceman, I would be dead. Why? That seems counterintuitive.
Because it collapses the binary opposition that sustains the self. This is where Derrida talks about the hymen.
Careful now.
In the literary sense. He borrows the term from the poet Mallarmé. The hymen is a membrane. Think of it like that. It separates the inside from the outside, but is also the very place where they touch. It is an undecidable structure. It is both hand and neither nor.
So the FSM exist in this hymen, this membrane.
They are caught in the membrane between human and alien. the source material, their own mythology, describes the project as kids being tortured until they became one with those very same aliens.
That's a much darker phrasing than I remember. Tortured until they became one.
It is trauma. But in a deconstructive reading, that trauma is the collapse of the opposition. They aren't humans fighting aliens. They aren't aliens pretending to be humans. They are the undecidable element in between. If they fully realized they were spacemen, the human part, the eye that speaks, the witness would die. It would be erased by the presence of the alien.
So to keep the band alive, to keep the project going, they have to stay in the torture. They have to stay in that transitional state.
You have to stay in difference. They have to keep deferring the conclusion, deferring the moment of becoming.
Wow, that sounds absolutely exhausting. A state of permanent crisis.
It is. It is a state of constant psychic tension. And to maintain that tension, to keep that door to the alien open without being completely erased, they needed help.
You mean the chemistry again? We're back in the ditch.
We are back in the ditch. We're talking about the pharmacon.
This is a massive concept of grammatology, and especially in his essay, Plato's Pharmacy. But in the context of Lancaster, California, we are talking about very specific, very cheap, over-the-counter substances.
We are. We've mentioned the tetrafluoroethane, the computer duster, but the sources also heavily reference Robitussin, dextromethorphan. The Reject War cassette order form from back in the day explicitly mentions Robitussin inspiration.
So we have cough syrup and computer cleaner, not exactly the ambrosia of the gods.
No, but they function precisely as the pharmacon. In Derrida's reading of Plato's Phaedrus, the Greek word pharmacon is fundamentally untranslatable into a single English word. It means cure, it means poison, and it also means scapegoat.
It's all three at once. You can't separate them.
Plato uses it to describe writing. He uses writing as a pharmacon for memory. It's a cure because it helps you preserve information for posterity. But it's a poison because if you rely on it too much, your actual living memory atrophies. It helps and it harms simultaneously.
And for FSM, the drugs are the pharmacon.
Look at the text of their experience, the way they describe it. First, the poison, the computer duster. The can literally says, don't turn it upside down or cold liquid will freeze your tongue. Luke describes fragmenting. It dissolves the ego. It makes the world cartoony. It destroys the rational, stable self.
That's the damage, that's the poison. But where is the cure?
The cure is the access. The cure is the game of Tachus. The drug allows Luke to escape the linear, boring, oppressive time of the suburbs. It allows him to feel like a master of the universe, predicting the bounds. It cures his human limitation, his separation from presence.
So the drug is the technology like writing, is a technology that allows them to access the Starcle text. It's the key.
Precisely. The music of five Starcle men, those endless warbling tape loops, the detuned warped guitars, the frantic vocals, is the sonic result of this pharmacon. It is not living logos. It's not a pure soul singing freely from the heart. It is the dead letter of the tape loop, a mechanical repetition fueled by a synthetic intoxicant.
But is it really a cure in the end? Or does it just entrap them further in this cycle?
Well, that's the eternal risk of the pharmacon. It displaces the natural subject. You have Luke and Glenn, the humans. But when the pharmacon enters their system, they're displaced by the Starcle subject. The drug speaks through them. They become mediums for this alien transmission.
There is a track that haunts me in this regard, and it's one they return to over and over. Cleanup Bug.
Yes, it appears constantly on Istant, on TFSM, on Baby FSM. It's like a motif they just can't shake. A recurring nightmare.
What is the cleanup bug? What does that even mean?
I think we can read this in two classic deconstructive ways. Is it a bug, an insect that cleans things up, a helpful creature? Or is it a bug, a glitch, a malfunction in the cleanup process itself?
Given their obsession with computers, samplers, and technology, glitch feels very appropriate.
I think so too. Freud, whom Derrida was always in dialogue with, talks about the compulsion to repeat. When we suffer a trauma that we can't process or symbolize, we are forced to repeat it. We dream about it. We unconsciously act it out. The constant repetition of a track called Cleanup Bug suggests that it is a trace of a trauma that refuses to be erased.
They are trying to clean up the recording. They're trying to clean up the messy, toxic, traumatic experience in the ditch. Make it into art.
But the bug remains. The glitch is permanent. The drug experience was the singular event. The cleanup bug is the sound of the machine trying to process that event and failing over and over. It's the stubborn remnant of the real that cannot be symbolized away.
Speaking of things that cannot be symbolized, we have to talk about the lyrics, or I guess what passes for lyrics in the FSM universe.
Section 4. Writing under erasure. or as Derrida would say, erasure.
I was listening to TFSM Tag 14 on the drive over here. The lyrics, and I'm quoting from a fan transcription, are "No la neso, la neso linas nele fala."
Catchy. That's a real hook.
It sounds like gibberish. It sounds like glossolalia, speaking in tongues.
A lazy listener or a hostile critic calls it gibberish. A deconstructionist calls it language sriracha.
Under erasure. This is the practice where you write a word, then cross it out with a single line, but you leave the original word legible.
Heidegger famously used it for the word being. Derrida picks it up and uses it for, well, almost everything. You cross the word out because you know it's inadequate. It carries too much metaphysical baggage. That's not the right word. But you leave it there, visible under the line, because it is the only word you have. It's necessary and inaccurate at the same time.
So when FSM sings Gamblesa Mebelum Vieca, they are crossing out English.
In a way, yes. They are admitting that English, the language of Lancaster High School, the language of their parents, the language of the engineer, is insufficient. It is completely inadequate to describe the alien truth they encountered in the ditch.
So they dismantle it, they tear it apart.
They break it down into phonemes, into pure sound. They give you the raw sound of speech without the baggage of meaning attached.
It reminds me of that term you brought up before, nume.
The nume, yes. This is a concept from medieval music theory that Derrida discusses at length of grammatology. He gets it from Rousseau, he gets it from St. Augustine. A nume is a confused music of jubilation.
Jubilation? That implies joy, ecstasy.
It is. St. Augustine describes it beautifully. He says that when you are praising God, words are unworthy. Words are too small, too human, too logical. So you just make sound. You jubilate without words. You let the breath, the pneuma, flow out of you in a pure, unmediated cry of praise.
So a lyric like Abba Lapso Shut Up isn't nonsense, it's a prayer.
It is a nume for the Starcle era. Instead of praising a Christian God, they are praising the Starcle, the alien, the experience in the ditch. They are using an ecstatic vocalization that attempts to bypass the logic of grammar, to touch the transcendental signified directly.
They're trying to scream the now.
Exactly. If they used a real word, a dictionary word, like ecstasy, they would be trapped in the history and definition of that word. By using Gomatsama, they are free. The sound is its own meaning.
But this erasure isn't just in the audio, it's intensely visual. I'm looking at scans of the box art right now. The mail webs.
The visual output is maybe the most literal text of erasure they produce.
It's overwhelming to look at. You have these cardboard boxes covered in layers and layers of tape, collages made from magazines, things they call polka-dotted viral anti-monitors, and then written text that is then painted over or covered with more tape.
Derrida has a beautiful quote about this kind of layering. He's talking about reading philosophy, but it applies perfectly here. He says, reading then resembles those X-ray pictures, which discover, under the epidermis of the last painting, another hidden picture.
This is the palimpsest.
It's a perfect palimpsest. And palimpsest is a manuscript page from a time when parchment was expensive. That has been written on, scraped clean, and then written on again.
Yeah.
Monks would scrape off old pagan texts to write new Christian ones, but the old text would sometimes bleed through, leaving a ghost image.
But with FSM, they aren't scraping it clean, they're just piling it on. It's an additive process.
It's an additive palimpsest, which is even more chaotic. To read an FSM box is to try and look through layers of what they call mutated living human cells, to find the trace of the original message underneath.
But here's the trick, the deconstructive turn. Is there an original? Was there ever a clean message at the bottom of the pile?
That is the question. We keep peeling back the tape, looking for the real message, the truth underneath. But what if the message is the tape? What if the message is the act of covering up?
The meaning isn't in the center. The meaning is in the layers of obfuscation.
There is no center. There's only the bricolage. There's only the tape, covering the drawing.
Which brings us to the mechanics of how this tape was made. I think we need to distinguish between the event and the machine.
Yes, this is section 5, and for this we're drawing on Derrida's later essay, Typewriter Ribbon. It's a fascinating piece.
Derrida talks about the tension between the singular event, something that happens once and can never be repeated, and the machine, something that repeats automatically, without soul, without thought.
Right, an event, for it to be a true event, must be singular. Unrepeatable, like the first jam Luke and Glenn had in the living room. That was a moment in time. It was messy, alive, unpredictable. It happened, and then was gone forever.
But the sound of FSM is defined by samplers, the Roland S50, and especially the tape loops. The liner notes list things like emergency tape loop 13.
The machine is the opposite of the event. It is dead. It repeats without feeling. It is a mechanism. Derrida asks, can we think the event and the machine together? Can they coexist?
And his answer is,
He says the result would be a monster, an impossible monstrosity.
and FSM music is that monster.
It is. It absolutely is. Listen to the structure of a classic track like Switch the Bastard. You have these singular, manic, unhinged vocal performances. Luke screaming, laughing, having what sounds like a genuine breakdown on tape. That feels like a raw event.
But it's trapped. It's imprisoned.
It is trapped within the relentless, idiotic, mechanical repetition of the loop. The sampler captures the human scream and repeats it again and again and again without any change in inflection.
The loop doesn't care that Luke is screaming. The loop just goes, it's totally indifferent.
It creates this impossible fusion that Derrida predicted. The living human cry is mechanized, and the machine, in turn, is given a human voice. It's a form of living death.
Yes.
A ghost in the machine, literally.
Living death, that phrase, it hits incredibly hard because we have to talk about Glenn.
Yes, we have to talk about Glenn.
Glenn, one of the two founding members, and specifically we need to discuss his novella Little Dementia Boy.
This is where the deconstruction moves from the theoretical, from the textual, to the biological. It is, frankly, it is haunting. It's one of the most uncanny things in the whole story.
For those in our audience who don't know the deep lore, Glenn wrote a story about a boy with a brain tumor. In the story, the boy has skin patches on his head from his condition. And the source material is very clear that he wrote this before he knew he had a brain tumor himself.
Before any diagnosis, before any major symptoms had even appeared.
And then in real life, Glenn is diagnosed with a brain tumor. He has the surgery, he has the scar, the literal skin patches on his head.
Derrida and Freud both talk about how the text can know more than the author. The unconscious leaves traces. Things are written that the conscious mind is not yet aware of. This is a terrifyingly literal example of that.
Glenn wrote his own diagnosis into a piece of fiction.
He did. But let's look even closer at the text of the story itself. It's not just about the boy. It mentions a special research team that is doing subliminal testing on the boy while he is in a coma. They are studying him.
I have the quote here. We built a special research center up there and plan to study him for a few hundred years.
Think about that line. Who is the research team?
Are you saying we are?
We are. The listeners, the archivists, the people running the fan websites. This deep dive right now. The project of FSM, after Glenn's diagnosis, became a machine for preserving and studying the trace of Glenn.
That gives me chills. The text says, once in a while we'll feed him some multimedia brainwave sectors that add to his dementia. That's the music. The cassettes, the MP3s, they are the multimedia brainwave sectors.
And we are feeding it to him. By listening, by analyzing, we are activating the machine. We are keeping the experiment going.
This connects directly to Freud's concept of the death drive, which Derrida riffs on constantly.
He does. Freud posits that life is a difference of death. Life is just a detour, a more complicated path on the way back to the inorganic state. Glenn's tumor was a biological deconstruction, an internal other, that was erasing his presence while simultaneously leaving a textual trace.
The tumor was writing him, it was overwriting him.
The tumor was the ultimate writing under erasure. It was erasing the biological Glenn and replacing him with the textual Glenn, the character in Little Dementia Boy.
And now the biological Glenn is gone, and all we have left is the text, the archive.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, the supplement of the archive.
We have this letter which has been circulated online from Glenn to Todd, an associate of the band who was holding on to a lot of their master tapes and writings. It's absolutely heartbreaking to read. He says, I am longing for my possessions, return books or any written documents.
He is desperate. You can feel the panic in the writing.
He feels like his self, his identity, is trapped in these physical objects that Todd has in his possession.
This is the danger of the supplement. This is Derrida's point. We think of writing, or recordings, or archives as a supplement to memory, a helpful addition. But eventually the supplement doesn't just help, it replaces the thing it's supposed to be helping.
Glenn fears that if he doesn't get the tapes back, he doesn't exist anymore. His memory is gone.
Exactly. The archive has supplanted the living memory. The artifacts now contain his identity. If Todd keeps the tapes, Todd keeps Glenn's soul, in a sense.
And then, after Glenn's death, after all this conflict, Luke releases the collection, Ghost Starby's Collected Kids.
Ghost Starby. The name itself admits the defeat, it admits the subject is dead. What's left is a specter.
Derrida wrote a whole book called Spectres of Marx. He was obsessed with ghosts.
He was. He coined the term hauntology, the logic of the ghost. A ghost is the ultimate deconstructive figure. It is a paradox. It is neither present nor absent. It appears, but it has no body. It's a trace with a voice.
So the FSM archive, the Starcle site websites, the digital files on Bandcamp we are listening to right now, these are digital graveyards.
They are ontological spaces. They preserve the FSM, but only as specters. We can hear their voices, but we can never touch them. They're always deferred, always just an echo.
It's weird though because Luke calls the release of that material an affirmation. Like, releasing the ghost is a positive thing.
In deconstruction, it is. You have to learn to live with ghosts. That's what ontology is about. You can't exorcise them. That's just another form of trying to achieve pure presence. If you try to ignore the ghost, it haunts you. If you try to catch the ghost, it vanishes. You have to learn to talk to it.
So by releasing the archive, Luke is accepting the ghost. He's having a conversation with the past.
He is accepting that FSM is no longer a living, present project, but a spectral one. He is letting the trace circulate freely to haunt whomever it finds.
The Starcle is never fully present. It all comes back to that.
Never. And it never was. Even in the ditch, that moment of pure presence was a hallucination. It was a chemical dream of presence, not presence itself.
So where does that leave us? We've looked at the trash, the drugs, the gibberish, the machines, and the ghosts. We've deconstructed the whole thing. What's the takeaway?
We reach the outro. The final aporia.
An aporia is a deadlock, right? A logical paradox you can't solve. An impasse.
Yes. The Starcle condition is an aporia. It's a search for a refoundation of the world. But from within, a world made of Krivos blocks and Starcle Krivos. These are terms from their own bizarre database of concepts.
They are trying to build meaning, a new center, in a world that is actively hostile to meaning, a world of debris.
It's a joyful yet laborious strategy of rewriting the old language, as Derrida would say. They didn't just give up and make noise, they built a world. A broken, contradictory, Starcle world.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, a provocative thought to chew on from the archive.
Go on.
There's an FSM lyric just scribbled on one of the cardboard boxes. It simply says, God is gaudy.
God is gaudy. I love that.
Think about it. So much of Western theology, especially mystical theology, tries to strip God down to the basics. Pure light, pure truth, simplicity. Or you get negative theology, where you only say what God is not. God is not finite. God is not visible. God is not comprehensible.
And Derrida argues that even negative theology is still trapped in metaphysics because it still desires that hyper-essential being that exists beyond language. It still wants that pure, clean center, even if it says we can't name it.
But God is gaudy. That's not negative theology. That's, I don't know, tacky theology.
It's brilliant. It's the ultimate bricoleur theology. It renders the transcendental signified the ultimate truth, God, whatever you want to call it, not as something pure and invisible, but as something excessive, over-decorated, and maybe a little tasteless.
It's cheap. It's plastic. It's covered in stickers and glitter.
God isn't a blinding white light. God is a dollar store Christmas ornament. God is a lawn flamingo.
God is a Starcle.
Yeah.
A messed up attempt to draw a typical star with a frowny face in it.
And maybe that's the ultimate deconstruction. The truth isn't hidden from us because it's too deep or too holy. It isn't hidden because it's in some other realm we can't access.
It's hidden because it's too cluttered.
It's hidden because there's too much bricolage on top of it. It's right in front of us, in the trash, but we can't see it for all the stuff.
And we're just the ants crawling over the pile.
Trying to read the layers.
Wow. That gives us a lot to think about on the drive home.
It certainly does.
Thank you for taking this trip to the drainage ditch with me. It was illuminating.
My pleasure. Anytime.
To our listeners, keep watching the bounce. And remember, you saw them, but you are not them.